Alrighty, so today we're going to do the final review of the regular season as it's time to look at the Western Conference game that happened on Decision Day. And while these Western Conference game on Decision Day, especially in the playoff race, wasn't as dramatic as what we saw in the Eastern Conference yesterday, there were definitely some interesting moment, and don't tell that to me and also 18,000 Quakes fans that attended the game between them and Austin FC, which we'll get to that in just a bit. But first of all, let's get to my other team, Minnesota. So, did they make it to the playoffs? Nope, because they didn't even bother showed up in this game against Sporting KC. I mean, there's a reason why Children Mercy Park will forever be a house of horror for this team. I mean, it feels like as long as Children Mercy Park is full of fans, it seems like Minnesota is not allowed to win against Sporting KC on the road. I mean, the only time that they, of course, beat Sporting KC at Children Mercy Park was during that COVID short season, and it wasn't even 100% capacity. So, yeah, in this game, it was kind of disappointing to see this team just kind of gone completely flat and kind of just implode in the first half to a point where I actually kind of stopped watching this game starting in the second half. I actually tuned into another game because I just had a feeling there was no way back for Minnesota in this one. Now early on, unsurprisingly, Sporting KC had all the possession as the Loons elect to sit back and counter. Reynoso would had a shot that took a deflection and goes wide before Radoja on the other end had a shot that took a deflection and it goes onto the roof of the net. I thought Sporting KC started to ramp up the pressure. They were looking for the opener, though 27 minutes in, the shots were still 3-1 for Sporting. I mean, there wasn't really too much shot early in this one because, with how much of a stake of this game is and the winner of this game could potentially make it to the playoffs, you knew it was going to be a bit of a tension start to this game. Though, that being said, in the 28th minute, Sporting KC gets the opening goal. And who else but Johnny Russell scoring from Showery to make it 1-0 in favor of Sporting KC. I mean, when all things are in doubt, why not rely on Johnny Russell? He's been an absolute killer for Minnesota United, and he scored again here to make it 1-0 in favor of Sporting KC. Not long after, it was 2-0 in favor of Sporting KC, as Raymond Voltaire would score from Showery to make it 2-0 in favor of SKC, and I mean, there goes Loon's playoff chance. I mean, this was a game where they were going to concede the first goal. They can't just capitulate and just decided to crater, and they did exactly that during that moment. And at that moment, I just knew that they weren't going to come back from this. I mean, I've seen some crazy playoff or a crazy kind of decision they game, but I had a feeling with the way how Minnesota has been playing this season, and they're especially not known for a team to come back from a deficit and come back from some high adversity kind of moments. Yeah, it looked like it was going to be done in terms of this game. Though Pookie did try to respond, but he hits it right to Melia. And we do head to halftime with Sporting KC leading 2-0. And again, I do not watch the second half of this game. I switched to the Portland Timbers versus Houston game because, as I'll talk about in just a bit, that game turns out to be big in terms of deciding who actually got the final spot in the playoffs. But in the second half, Sporting continued to dominate possession as the Loons look like they just want the season to end. I mean, it's been an absolute frustrating season for this team, and that I'll definitely talk more about it in the Moving Forward series and what needs to change for this team heading into next season. Though Tommy did miss wide from close in the 64th minute before Russell curls it wide from close range. There was then some coming together between both of these teams because it's a rivalry. I mean, it's the nicest rivalry in MLS until it isn't during that moment. But in the 77th minute, Sporting KC would make it 3-0. And it's that man again, Johnny Russell. He loves scoring against Minnesota United, and he scored again here to make it 3-0 in favor of Sporting KC. But that was just a gift for Johnny Russell and this Sporting KC team because, yeah, how many times I've said this season that this Loons back line, they didn't clear their lines and they were punished because of it. There you go. And of all players that didn't clear their lines, it's Michael Boxall, the one that didn't clear their lines. And I gotta say, for Michael Boxall, I mean, I don't think this is going to be his last season for this team, but maybe next year might be his final season, and maybe be the year where he might be getting reduced minute. And center backs is definitely going to be something that this team is going to look to try and replace him because Boxall has been shaky this season. He is definitely started to come up in that age. I mean, he's 35 years old. That's usually a time when well, for defenders, some of them they do have a longer longevity, but you can see that also definitely have start to show some tear and wear, and that father time is starting to catch up to a bit, and that yeah, again, this was not a great moment for him. He didn't clear the ball. He cleared it right into Johnny Russo, and yeah, that's the last guy you want to clear the ball right to him and have him a free look at goal. So yeah, they made it 3-0 in favor of Sporting KC. Though to be fair, Boxall did make up for it in the 82nd as he scored here from Reynoso from the corner to make it 3-1 in favor of Sporting KC. But yeah, I didn't think Minnesota was going to come back from this one, and they didn't. They lose 3-1 in this game. They're officially eliminated from the playoffs, and it's the first time since 2018 that they miss out on the playoffs. Shots in this one, 13 shots for the 7 that Minnesota has. Both teams had 3 shots on goal. 2 shots off target for the 6 that Sporting KC had. 2 shots that was blocked for the 4 that Sporting KC had. And possession-wise, 51% possession compared to the 49% possession that Minnesota has in this game. And as much as I can lammer how disappointing this season is for this team, which I'll get more to that when I talk about the moving forward series of this team, I gotta give a lot of credit to what Sporting KC has dealt this season. I mean, this has just been a battle for this team. The fact that this team still were able to make it to the playoffs despite after what happened in the first 10 game of the season, the easily the worst stretch that any team in league history has gone through. You got to give a lot of credit to Peter Vermees and his staff. I mean, the fact that he was looked like he was on the hot seat, and every Sporting KC fans were calling for his head to a point where yeah, he just realized that yeah, he still got some magic left in his sleeve, and there's a reason why he is still the longest active head coach in Sporting KC. He's been there for now 15 plus season, and here he is again, gathering his troops. And if there's one thing I know about Peter Remy's team, when playoff time comes, they can be a very scary team, and especially with the momentum that they got coming out of this game, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is not going to be a team that you want to face in the playoffs. And unfortunately, the team that they're going to be faced in the playoffs, and a little spoiler and foreshadow alert, is the other team that I root for. But that being said, Sporting KC of course jumped to eight position after this win. But now moving into the next one, which is the Galaxy versus FC Dallas. So for Dallas, coming into this game, they've drawn 5 straight games, and that goal scoring has been a huge issue for this FC Dallas team. It really didn't look like it in this game. Now, I don't know how much is that because of the fact that they're playing the Galaxy, and the Galaxy pretty much their defense is basically a turnstile. Like it's pretty much just free for all in terms of it, and that that a Galaxy game is going to feature a lot of shots and a lot of chances, and it looked like early on that was the case because just 4 minutes into this game, Dallas gets the goal. It's Bernard Kamungo. He scored from Fari to make it 1-0 in favor of FC Dallas, and that Kamungo, of course, making his return. And it's not a big surprise that with his return, this Dallas team has started to go well. I mean, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If they eventually do move on from Jesus Ferreira, which I think there's going to be suitors in Europe that is looking to try to get Jesus Ferreira, Bernard Camungo is the next in line in terms of taking that spot. He has definitely shown it this season, but unfortunately, as we'll talk about in just a bit, yeah, unfortunately, he got injured again in this one, and this could be a huge blow to Dallas' chance in the playoffs. But in the 6th minute, Jovic did look to respond, but he was robbed by Pass from point blank effort. So as much as Dallas went pretty big in this game. Pass had to make some big save in this one. There was some good chances for the Galaxy, and that again, this feels like it's one of those games where the scoreline kind of didn't tell the whole story of this whole game. Though on the other end, Mikovic would deny Fiera a shot that took a deflection, and I just thought we might be in for another one of those Galaxy game where it's just kind of back and forth, where defense pretty much is non-existent throughout the game. Though in the 13th minute, Tomasi would score here for Dallas to make it 2-0 in favor of them. That is probably the first time that Dallas had scored 2 goals in a long time. I mean, this is a team that I think throughout those 5 games where they got a draw on all those games, I don't think they scored 2 goals during those stretches. So yeah, that just tells you how much this team struggle on the attacking end, especially in the latter part of the season. But hey, if you're going to have your best attacking performance of the season, why not have it in literally the most important game and a game that could clinch yourself to be in the playoffs? In the 20th minute, Pass would deny Boy from close range, but then in the 24th minute, Galaxy gets one back. It's Raheem Edwards. He scored from Boy and Fagundes to make it 2-1 in this one. Though Dallas quickly restored their 2-goal lead. And it's that guy again, Kumungo. He scored from Fiera and Palmico to make it 3-1. He was going for a hat trick in the 35th minute, but he missed wide there. But this is where I go back to when I said how this could be a huge blow for Dallas in terms of their playoff chances because Kumungo would subbed off with an injury. Now, I'm not sure exactly how serious the injury is going to be, but you can clearly see that with Kumungo on this team, this Dallas team definitely have some weapons on the attack, but without him, yeah, there could be some questionable. Though it didn't look like it at least immediately because O'Brien basically replaced him, and he immediately picked up where Kumungo left off as he would score here from Ariella and Tafari to make it 4-1 in favor of FC Dallas. Where's this been for Dallas in terms of their attack? And again, I don't know how much is that due to Kumungo making his return and once again providing that goal scoring presence that Dallas desperately needed, or the fact that the Galaxy defense are just absolutely horrendous throughout this last month or so. But we do head to halftime with this one being a 4-1 lead in the second half. Again, I didn't really take too much notes because this game was pretty much well and truly done. Though Fiera did look to try to make it 5, but he missed wide there. Not much really happened in the second half. Again, this feels like the resort looks like all settled. Dallas was cruising their way to make it to the playoffs. Now the question is, can they of course get that 7th seed, which avoids them playing in the wild card round and in the play-in game, or at least that's what it is. But Costa then puts it high on the free kick in the 71st minute before Pass would deny Boy from long range. I mean, Tyler Boy is going to have nightmare of Martin Pass because there was so many chances for Tyler Boy to score in this game, but Martin Pass just says no in this one. In fact, he would deny him again it just 13 minutes later on the free kick. Yeah, in the end, Dallas, they do win 4-1 in this one, and not only clinching the playoffs, but they avoid the wild card opening round with them climbing 7th in the standings. And the shots in this one, 16 shots compared to 15 that Dallas had, 6 shots on the open to 5 that the Galaxy had, 7 shots off target compared to 2 that Dallas had, 4 shots on the block compared to 7 that Dallas had, and possession-wise, 65% possession compared to 35% possession that Dallas has in this one. And again, as much as I know Dallas fans are happy that their team made it back to the playoff again. Again, the loss of Mungo and the fact that the team that they're going to face in the opening or in the first round of the best of 3 is none other than the Seattle Sounders. Yeah, that is a team that, again, for FC Dallas, it feels like they just cannot avoid the Seattle Sounders unless if that was last season when the Sounders didn't make it to the playoffs. And all I'll say is that we'll see how that's going to end up because Dallas has just it feels like whenever Dallas does play a Cascadia team, yeah, they might as well just kind of wrap it up and think about next season because they just have that curse in regards of always getting eliminated by a Cascadia team, and we'll see whether or not if that could be the case again when they do play in that best of 3. And again, I don't know how much is this attacking explosion means the turnaround for this Dallas team, or the fact that the Galaxy defense are really bad, and if Kumungo is not going to be available for the future game, that could be a problem for this Dallas team heading into that best of 3 series against Seattle. So with Dallas clinching the 7th position and with Sporting KC clinch the 8th position, we only have one more spot left to play for in the Western Conference. So moving on into the next one. So coming into this game, Portland, of course, they were sitting in 7th position in the standings, but the problem for Portland is that they only have a 2-point advantage in terms of above the red line, and that they technically still need to get a result and hope that other teams don't get the result that goes against them, and they can still potentially miss out on the playoffs if they do lose in this game. Guess what happened in this one? Yep, they lost this game, and all the resort that they hope that doesn't go against them went against them in this one. And really, I feel like this was just kind of deja vu all over again. I mean, last season we saw this happen where the Timbers kind of come out completely flat against RSL and they got beat 3-1 in this one. They kind of did the same thing almost in this one, giving up an early goal in this one. And little do we know, before you know it, they found themselves 3-0 down as we head in the latter part of the second half. Though I will like to say that as a San Jose Earthquakes fan, I want to thank the Houston Dynamo for at least saving the Quakes and making sure they make it to the playoffs. And hence, this is why I'm wearing a Houston Dynamo jersey. Want to thank our former Quakes, or the Ghost Quakes team, able to get get the points that allowed the current Quakes team to be able to move on into the playoffs. But early on, Clark would then deny Evander from long range. You know, Steve Clark is going to have a good game in this one. I mean, whenever you have a goalkeeper facing against his former team, you know they're going to have a personal vendetta against them and want to do well against them. But in the 8th minute, McGraw would head it wide from the corner. And, you know, I say that it was kind of a flat start for the Timbers. That's kind of a bit of misleading because they kind of got a good decent start early in this one. But they got them punched in the mouth in the 13th minute as Griffin Dorsey would score from Herrera to give the Dynamo a 1-0 lead. It was completely against the run of play, and it was the first shot for the Dynamo and some poor set piece defending from the Timbers. I mean, set piece defending has been a problem for the Timbers in these last couple of years, and here we go again. Griffin Dorsey just completely left unmarked there in the back post. And while you know he still had a lot to do to trying to loop that one in, you cannot allow a player that wide open in the back post and expect to potentially get away of not conceding a goal there. And yeah, Houston basically made Timbers pay for that bad set piece defending, and then they looked like they were making 2-0 when Bossy just puts it wide looking for the second goal, and it looked like they did get the second goal in the 25th minute as Corey Bear would score here, but unfortunately the flag did not agree with him as the goal was disallowed for offside, and I think Bingham might be the most relief goalkeeper on the relief man because of the flag came up because he allowed a juicy rebound right to Corey Bear. Also, David Bingham, as much as I know a lot of Quakes fans have given him hate because of that kind of traitor move that he did a couple years ago. I also want to thank him in terms of the fact that he also didn't show up in this one and just are trying to help his former team to trying to get into the playoffs. But that being said, in the 30th minute, Clark would deny Moreno in the front post before Paredes would flash one wide from close. The Timbers were pressing again. This time they were looking for the equalizer. And again, they don't need to win in this one, especially with how the other resort was going up to this point. They just need a draw out of this game. Though Clark did deny Moreno from close before he denied Evander from close range. I told you Steve Clark would have a good game in this one. He clearly that want to do well against his former team, and not only also trying to knock out his former team too in this game as well. But we do head to halftime with the Dynamo leading 1-0. But you know the Timbers, they had some good chances in the first half. You're thinking maybe they can continue that heading into the second half. Things well, nope. In the 49th minute, Coco Carrasquilla would score to make it 2-0 in favor of the Houston Dynamo, and it came off of a terrible clearance there from the Timbers. Like they just did not clear their lines whatsoever. I said this earlier with Minnesota not clearing their lines there and how they were punished, and the Timbers basically suffered the same case. Didn't clear their lines there. Carrasquilla was there to eventually put it away, and yeah, that was just a disastrous start for the Timbers. Like that was kind of the last thing they need. They looked like they had the momentum, and now they find themselves 2-0 down. Bingham then denied Quinones from close range before Quinones looked like he scored the third goal, but for the second time tonight, the flag did not agree with that. It was disallowed for offside, but you can just kind of sense that momentum was with the Dynamo, and that second goal was just an absolute killer for this Timbers team. Like the heads was dropping. Providence Park, you can hear a pin drop because of how things were going, and you can also start to see fans start to leaving too in the 71st minute because Houston would make it 3-0 up to this point, and it's Griffin Dorsey again. He scored here again, this time from Carrasquilla and Herrera to make it 3-0 in favor of the Dynamo. Like I said, you can hear a pin drop inside Providence Park. It feels like it's deja vu all over again for this Timbers team on decision day. Last year, they found themselves literally in the same position that they found themselves now going down 3-0 against the opposition. But this time, you got to say, it's got to be a little bit more painful the fact that they are playing at home, whereas last season they were playing on the road. Though, that being said, in the 80th minute, just like last year, where they got one back late in the game, they got one back late in this game too, with Felipe Mora scoring from Evander to make it 3-1, and maybe a glimmer of hope for the Timbers in this one, right? Well, no, because after Smith hit one right to Bingham, Blanco would then puts it over the bar from close range, and that was pretty much it. That was the last chance of the game. The Houston Dynamo, they are able to come into Providence Park and get a win in this one. Almost said they were going to move on to the playoffs. They already clinched the playoffs a long time ago. But with this win, they've also clinched at least one home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't think anyone want to play this Houston Dynamo team. Like, if you want to talk about an ultimate dark horse in MLS this season, the Houston Dynamo is definitely that team. I mean, whatever Ben Olsen is doing to this team is definitely worked out to a point where, yeah, I mean, after all the rebuilds that this Dynamo team has gone through, it has to feel nice, at least if you're a Dynamo fans or even a neutral MLS fans, of seeing a team finally click. I mean, the Dynamo has had a lot of tough season, and the fact that not only they finally made it to the playoffs for the first time since 2017, but playing probably the best soccer that I've seen the Houston Dynamo have played in years, maybe even better than what we saw in 2017. And that team had some good players too. Watch out. This is a Dynamo team that I think they can do what they did in 2017 and can easily make it to the Western during conference final. And the fact that now they're able to go on the road and win games, which has always been a problem for this Dynamo teams. Yeah, this team can be a really dangerous team, and not to mention this could definitely be one the hottest. This team is one of the hottest team coming into the playoffs. So yeah, again, the Dynamo with a big win in this one, but again for the Portland Timbers, I mean, again, it just feels like it's very similar to last year, where they kind of had a bit of a second half resurgence last season, and then it fell apart in the final two game. Guess what happened here? They got that second half resurgence, though I think maybe that has to do with the new head coach, or in this case, the new interim head coach boost with Miles Joseph. But it feels like that new interim head coach boost kind of ran out at the worst time as possible, and yeah, it's kind of almost carbon copy from last season. A very disappointing end for the Portland Timbers, who once again miss out on the playoffs for the second consecutive year. But that being said, moving on in the next match. So as I mentioned, I want to thank the Houston Dynamo of getting this big win to make sure that the Quakes do get to the playoffs, despite the fact that they got a draw on this one. I mean, again, coming into this game, I just had a feeling the Quakes had to win if they want to make it to the playoffs. I didn't think a draw was going to be enough, though. It turns out that it actually was enough for this team to make it to the playoffs. But let me tell you, this was a very infuriating game to watch. I mean, this was a game where it really reminds me of watching Minnesota United play at time this season at home, where it's just this was a game where the Quakes could have easily won if Rat Stuver or the finishing was there in this game. Now, early on in the first half, not much really happened in the opening 10 minutes. Both teams was just kind of feeling each other out, though the first shot of the game did see Wolf blasted way high from close range. Rigoni then missed a free header from close in the 11th minute, because, that's what Emmanuel Rigoni has done throughout his career for Austin FC. I thought it was a flat start for the Quakes. Again, in a must-win game like that, it was very, very, very concerning to see this team kind of got off to a bit of a flat start, and especially with the fact that this was a sold-out crowd inside PayPal Park. We haven't seen a lot of that this season, and the energy was definitely there in this game. And I'll tell you what, PayPal Park, as much as this is a stadium that at times the atmosphere kind of seemed a little flat, when there's a pivotal game, that stadium can definitely shake, and it definitely shaked at times in this one. Though in the 60 minutes, Stuver did deny you in the near post, but then in the 17-minute, that stadium erupted as Espinoza would score from Ibobasi to make it 1-0 in favor of the Quakes, because of course Christian Espinoza is going to score in a pivotal year. He is easily the MVP of this team this year. But that also kind of came of a mistake there from Austin, giving the ball away in their own half. That's something that's been very common for this Austin team this season. Ibobasi then missed wide from long range in the 28th minute. I thought it was very interesting to see the Quakes kind of start to sit back a little bit and allow Austin have the possession, because that is something I haven't seen them done a lot this season, and I don't think that was intentional. I generally think that Luchi Gonzalez probably not happy with the way that his team wasn't able to sustain possession and was kind of getting pinned back at time, because in the 33rd minute, Austin was able to get the equalizer. It's Owen Wolf scoring from Lima and Dreyusi to tie the game up at one apiece, and that's just kind of one of those moments where kind of have to tip your hat off to Owen Wolf there. I mean, it was just a looping header where, I don't think Daniel had anything to do. I mean, it was just one of those perfect looping header where it's almost impossible to stop, and that ties the game up at one apiece. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the looping header that I saw earlier this season, where Dallas got the equalizer against the Quakes. But yeah, this one I think it was even better because it's such a tight angle, and I have no idea how Owen Wolf was able to hit that one in. But yeah, that ties the game up at one apiece. Espinoza this does look to response, but he missed wide from long range, and then Yule would miss wide from long range as well. The Quakes definitely responded well, but the problem was too many low percentage shots. They were shooting from outside the box. I didn't really like the fact that they were doing that. And yeah, we do head to halftime, tied at one apiece in this game. Now in the second half, Cal would miss wide from close in the 51st minute before Stuver would absolutely rob Ebovasi from point blank there. I mean, that's one that Ebovasi would want to have back, and that's also where we started to see Brad Stuver started to bail out this Austin team this season. I mean, Brad Stuver has had a really inconsistent season. I mean, there's times where he has been able to bail out this Austin team time in and time again, and then there's times where he puts an absolute dud. He's been a very streaky kind of goalkeeper this season. But there was no doubt the Quakes were once again on the front foot. They were looking to press for the lead. There was a huge shout for a handball not given at that point. Espinoza then had a shot that was deflected and goes wide, and then Stuver would tip Rodriguez shot over. Ibobasi then blasted high from long range, and as much as the Quakes have putting wave after wave of pressure against this Austin team, you just kind of had a feeling they eventually has to capitalize on one of these. Though in the 67th minute, the post would deny Ibobasi from close before Yule would miss wide from close range in the 69th minute, and this is where I start to worry that yeah, I'm starting to see the Quakes catching up to the Loons kind of syndrome of just putting a lot of chances, but they just ran into a hot goalkeeper, and also a combination of them not being able to show their clinical finishing. Rodriguez then heads it right to Stuvard, and while Austin did look like they were just gonna park the bus in this one, the Quakes still had to be careful in terms of transition. That was one thing I was very worried because even though up to this point the Quakes were still able to go through into the playoffs, they give up a goal against Austin, then all of a sudden they found themselves out of the playoffs. And knowing the craziness that we have seen in terms of decision day, that was definitely not out of the realm. And especially if they do give up a late goal in this one, that would be just such a Quakes way for them to get eliminated on the final day of the season. Especially, I also think that if this was maybe the beginning of the season, the Quakes probably would have somehow found a way to give up a late goal because that was a huge problem for this team in the beginning of the season of not being able to close out games. Though Hoppy did miss wide from close in the 77th minute, and again, Austin, uh, they they might get or actually, yeah, up to this point, that was kind of the last chance because Austin, I thought started to survive that wave of pressure, and the Quakes again started to become very stagnated on the attack, and this is where the concerns start to be because again, this is still just a 1-1 game, and that I just worry. It only takes one. It only takes one moment for Austin to go on the transition, and now all the sudden they're losing 2-1 the Quakes, and that they could be out of the playoffs. Though Stuver did deny Mensah from the corner in the 87th minute, and you just can sense the frustration and the tense energy inside PayPal Park. I'm not sure if the crowd realize that they're still in the playoff position, but if one goal that is given up on the other end, they're out of the playoffs because yeah, you can definitely sense a tense energy. I mean, I'm pretty sure they know. I mean, I know the person that was standing next to me. They were watching the standings nonstop, so I'm pretty sure everybody knew that they had to hold on to get a resort if they want to make it to the playoffs. Thankfully for them, they did exactly that. They get a 1-1 draw in that one. By the way, there was 6 minutes of stoppage time in this game, and that was probably one of the most tense 6 minutes I've seen, even though the other opposition didn't really create any chances whatsoever. Because, yeah, in the end, Austin only had 4 shots in this one compared to 20 that the Quakes had. 7 shots on goal for the one that Austin has. 10 shots off target for the 2 that Austin had. 3 shots that was blocked compared to the 1 that Austin had. And possession-wise, 49% possession compared to the 51% possession that Austin has in this game. And yeah, it wasn't pretty whatsoever for them to make it to the playoffs. And at times it was really infuriating to not see this team able to get that second goal to get the win. Well, they did make it. And they now we'll see how they're going to do. I mean, even though they did make it, I won't be surprised that maybe some Quakes fans and maybe some fans will say, well, yeah, they make it, but it doesn't look like they're going to do much because they have to play against Sporting KC on the road. And the last time they played against Sporting KC, yeah, they got absolutely slaughtered in that game. And knowing the fact that the league is not going to deny a chance to have the soccer capital derby between St. Louis and Sporting KC in the first round. Yeah, I don't really give the Quakes a lot of chances of making past Sporting KC and get that revenge that they didn't get, or their revenge for that 2020 game that they lost in that hard fought battle between them and Sporting KC. But that being said, I will say that in the beginning of the season, if I told you that the Quakes would make it to the playoffs, I say it's a successful season, and I am going to live that by that word. I think no matter what happened in that Sporting KC game, I mean, if they, as long as they don't just get absolutely blown out in that one, I still think it's a successful season, especially what Lucha Gonzalez has been able to build upon. I think it's been a successful season, but if they eventually does get eliminated, obviously this team can still build on, and we'll see whether they can potentially build on heading into next season and get things going once again. But like I said, the fact that they made it to playoffs, and in a season that I didn't expect them to make it to the playoffs, I think it's going to be a success, no matter what. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last three games to finish off the review of these Western Conference game and also the final review of the 2023 regular season. So moving on, we got the Rocky Mountain Cup between Colorado and RSL, and just like yesterday, I mentioned how on the first board it has all the game that is related to the playoff race. In the second board, it's more to do with teams that have already clinched the playoffs, and it's all about seeding. But coming into this game between RSL and Colorado, RSL was trying to get themselves home field advantage, and even though they did get this win in the Rocky Mountain Cup, they weren't able to do so because Houston also won their game. But at least in this Rocky Mountain Cup, I will say that it was an evenly battle matchup. And again, this is where I've said this before with the Colorado Rapids. This is a team that they're playing hard under Chris Lino. I mean, I know the result hasn't been shown, but this team has definitely haven't give up, and that they're going to there's going to be some interesting decision that the Colorado Rapids could make this offseason, and I won't even be surprised if Chris Little maybe be in contention of getting promoted as the permanent head coach for this Colorado Rapids team. Now, in the first half, McMath would deny Bassett from the corner before Rodriguez would rob Muswowski from point blank effort. For Rodriguez getting his first chance starting for Colorado in this one this season. Navarro then missed one in the header. Of course, last time that Abraham Rodriguez came into the game, it wasn't really an expected start with him have to come in after a red card was given to William Yarbrough in that game against the Portland Timbers, but he did make his first start of the season in this one. But Lewis would then flash it wide from close before McMath on the other end would rob Maxo from close range. So this was a game where there was a lot of chances for both of these teams, and both goalkeepers were definitely on their A game. McMath then denied Lewis from close range. The Rapids were having the momentum, and they were pressing for the opener. Guzman would then pulls it wide from long range before Ojeda on the other end heads one right to Rodriguez, and then Ronan on the other end would puts it wide from close range. And despite the fact that there was a lot of chances for both of these teams, we remain scoreless in this Rocky Mountain Cup heading into the second half. Now in the second half, Rodriguez would deny Luna, but he did give up a big rebound there, and he's fortunate that he was not made to pay because there was no RSL player around the vicinity. I mean, that was just a wicked rebound that Rodriguez gave up. That if there was any RSL player in the vicinity, it could have easily been capitalized. Bassett on the other end puts it wide from long range. The chances once again was coming for both of these teams, but the question is, who can get the opener? Turns out it was RSL, the one that gets the opener, because after Gomez hits one right to Rodriguez, in the 74th minute, Luna would open the scoring, and what a goal this was. I mean, between this goal and the goal that was scored by Duncan McGuire, I mean, I think the Duncan McGuire one was even more impressive because he kind of loops it over the head of the defender and goes through on goal. But this one, take nothing away from this one too. Just great individual solo effort there from Diego Luna to basically put that one in. Though they did check to see whether or not if the ball did go out of bounds before he made that solo effort because it was pretty close. I mean, Luna barely saved that one from crossing the line. VAR basically says nope, so the goal stands. Though on the other end, Navarro would miss wide from close range before McMath would absolutely rob Cabral from point blank effort. So again, Colorado, they're not going away, and this is the thing about Chris Little team. They are fighting hard to the very end, even though it's kind of a meaningless game for them. But as the time winds down, Colorado was definitely pressing for a late equalizer. RSL was kind of looking to hang on. Roland had a chance in the 4th minute, but he hits one right to McMath. And in the end, RSL, they survive and get a 1-0 win in this one. Shots in this one, 16 shots for the 8 that RSL had. Both teams had 5 shots on goal, 10 shots on target for the 1 that RSL had, 2 shots that was blocked for the 1 that Colorado has, and possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that the Rapids has in this game. So the miserable season for the Rapids has finally come to an end. But like I said, there's got to be some positive you can take out of, especially in this latter stretch where I know the record's not going to say it, but this Rapids team look very good down the stretch. And who knew that a change of coaching is going goes a long way in terms of them making these players believe once again. Though, again, some would argue that maybe this is because of the new interim head coach boost that the Rapids seems to kind of got, and that it seems like these players are still trying to fighting hard for their job, unlike what we see the other team that finished dead last in the Eastern Conference has done. But that being said, unfortunately, they didn't have anything to show for, and RSL, they was just a little bit more clinical in this game to get that 1-0 win. Speaking of which, moving on into the next game between Seattle versus St. Louis. So this game was kind of almost a carbon copy of the Rocky Mountain Cup, where it was a very evenly matchup. There was chances for both of these teams. Both goalkeeper also play well, but Seattle was just a more clinical side in this one. Early on, Jackson would hit it right to Fry in the 4th minute before João Paulo on the other end puts it wide from long range, and then Morris would hit it wide from the corner in the 8th minute. Both of these teams were getting some good half chances early on, and it would be Seattle, the one that gets the opening goal. It's Albert Rusnak scoring from Christian Rodon to make it 1-0 in favor of Seattle. Bloom would then look for a response, but he was denied by Fry in the 29th minute, and then Leuven puts it high from long range. And again, I thought it was a good response for St. Louis. They were looking now to try to tie this game up, but instead, they found themselves 2-0 down in the 37th minute. It's actually awarded as an own goal for Tim Parker, but honestly, in my opinion, give it to Reed Baker Whiting. I mean, he absolutely deserved this goal, even though I know that probably it wasn't going to be on target. It was more of a cross that kind of deflected off of Tim Parker and goes into the back net. But still, for a guy that that could have been potentially his first career MLS goal, and it would have been a very memorable moment for him. They should have just give it to him. They shouldn't have just awarded this as an own goal for Tim Parker, but nevertheless, it is still a 2-0 lead, or that goal, of course, would be make it 2-0 in favor of Seattle, and that would be the scoreline heading into the second half. Now, in the second half, Chu almost made it 3-0 in favor of the Sounders, but he struck the post from the near post. Fry would then deny Jackson from close range, and then Jackson had a chance himself again as he clipped the post from close range. It was a good game here from Azel Jackson, and once again, making Minnesota look bad of why they decided to let him go in the last off season. But as I said, just like the first half, there was some good chances for both of these teams to start the second half. Leuven would then puts it high from long range in the 60th minute. For Rodon would hit one right to Berkey in the 65th, but then in the 68th minute, it looked like St. Louis had a chance to get back to this game as a penalty was awarded to St. Louis. However, they go to VAR to see whether or not if Giacchini was brought down by João Paulo, and he was not. And it was the right call. I mean, Giacchini, he did his best to try to sell it, and I think maybe he can count himself lucky the fact that he didn't get a yellow card for embellishment. Although I'm not sure he's probably gonna get away from the disciplinary committee potentially finding him for simulation there, because yeah, Giacchini clearly dived there. He clearly sold the foul, and that in the age of VAR, I mean, I know sometimes in the age of VAR, they might not catch it, but in this sequence, it was caught, and that, yeah, no penalty was given to St. Louis. Markanich then hits one right to Fry in the 72nd minute. And again, even though St. Louis, they really didn't have anything to play for in this game, they were going to finish top spot in the Western Conference. Well, I say that, but technically, they if they want to reach the mark where LAFC did in their expansion season in terms of getting the most points as an expansion team, they had to win in this one, which is kind of crazy because I thought St. Louis locked up that record, but then I go back in the standings and I realized it was only still on 56 points, which again, this year the Western Conference has been very strange when the team that finished at the top of the Western Conference finished with 56 points. Like that is probably the lowest amount of points I've seen a team that finished at the top of the Western Conference. Like not even Colorado, which was a big surprise of finishing the Western Conference a couple of years ago, finished with 56 points. I think they finished with like 61 points. But that being said, in the 85th minute, Berkey would deny Ladero on the free kick, and then on the other end, Adeniran would puts it wide from long range. But yeah, in the end, Seattle, they were just the more clinical side in this one. They get the 2-0 win against not against the Sounders. They didn't play against themselves. But they get the 2-0 win against St. Louis is what I meant. Shots in this one, 16 shots for the 15 that both of these teams are 15 shots. These team has 5 shots on goal, 5 shots off target compared to the 9 that St. Louis had. 2 shots that was blocked for the 5 that Seattle has, and possession-wise, 53% possession compared to the 47% possession that the Seattle Sounders has. And don't look now, but the Seattle Sounders are coming into the playoffs with a 9-game unbeaten streak. And you know how the old saying that, death, taxes, and the Seattle Sounders finished second in the Western Conference? Ladies and gentlemen, guess what happened? They finished second in the Western Conference. I mean, honestly, it's almost like a given, the fact that the Seattle Sounders is going to finish second, besides what happened last year, which I'm pretty sure Sounders fan would not want to speak about what happened last year. They pretended last year was just a complete outlier. But yeah, they finished second once again in the standings. And again, talk about how with that 9-game unbeaten streak and how we've seen the story before where a Brian Schmitzer team gets hot late in the season and go through a second half resurgence. And guess what happened? They end up winning the MLS Cup. It feels like that narrative is maybe starting to boil in once again, and especially how unpredictable the Western Conference is. I mean, you got to say the Seattle Sounders has to be a favorites of potentially moving deep into the playoffs and potentially win the West outright. Because again, we've seen this story before with them getting hot at the right time, and especially this is kind of like their one last push before this core that they have maybe started to be dismantled. You can sense that they're definitely going to try to give it their best and try to go on another deep run and maybe win one last MLS Cup in terms of this core that they assemble a couple of years ago. But for St. Louis, I will say that for St. Louis, there is a slight concern the fact that they haven't really been playing very well in the last couple of games. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with them decide to rest some of their players. And this is where there's that discussion of, well, it's one thing to give rest to some of your players and hope that they don't get injured heading into the playoffs. But then there's also the question of, well, if they give too much rest and the fact that you're not heading to the playoffs in a strong form, that could be a problem for those teams that are going ahead into the playoffs kind of on a cold form. They meet a hot team and they can get knocked out in the first round, and we'll see whether or not that's the case for St. Louis. I mean, either way, whatever happened from now on, even if they get eliminated in the first round, you got to say this has been a season of dream for the St. Louis City side. Like nobody would have thought that this team would have a successful season, let alone finish at the top of the Western Conference like they did. And that, yeah, they're definitely heading into uncharted territory, and we'll see whether if they can do something that we have not seen done before in a long time, and it's only been done once in 1998, the Chicago Fire in their expansion season, winning MLS Cup, and we'll see whether if St. Louis maybe get will get to that point with a potential deep playoff run. With that being said, moving on into the last game on the board is Vancouver and LAFC. So yesterday I mentioned that it turns out one of the decision day match is going to turns out to be the first round matchup in the playoffs. This is the same case in the Western Conference. This is actually going to be a matchup we're going to see at least 2 more times, and that we are actually going to eventually see a total of 6 times that both of these teams have faced off against each other. Because remember, both of these teams face off in the CONCACAF Champions League too, besides the 2 regular season matchup they've seen in MLS. And when you've seen each other so many times, don't be surprised it could be a feisty kind of affair between both of these teams. And at least in this game for the Vancouver Whitecaps and LAFC, for the Whitecaps, yeah, they should have won this one. I mean, this is a game that they'll be kicking themselves that they didn't win because they missed two penalties in this one. Early on, Takaoka would deny Bawanga from long range before he denied Bawanga from the corner. So, even though Bawanga kind of had the golden boot wrapped up to that point, I mean, he had a free goal lead in terms of so that it was going to take something crazy from other players to at least tie his mark. But yeah, he made sure that by the end that he would of course eventually win a golden boot. And just a little spoiler alert, he did score again in this game. But in the 12th minute, a penalty was given to Vancouver. Oh, I forgot to mention, LAFC was on the front foot. They were pushing for the opener early, but it was quickly halted in the 12th minute when a penalty was given to Vancouver after VAR deemed that Hans had brought down Larea in the box. So here comes Ryan Gaul. He has not missed a penalty up to this point, and whoops, I shouldn't have said that because he finally missed one here in the 16th minute as Max Crepeau with a great save here to deny Gaul from the spot. I mean, to be fair, it wasn't a bad penalty from Ryan Gaul, but just Crepeau gets the right way, dive to his right to deny Gaul from the spot and denied the Whitecaps the lead up to that point. Though Gaul did try to take the lead just 3 minutes later, but he crossed it wide from close range, and now it seems like Vancouver was having the momentum. They were looking to try to press for the opener, but every time I said that is the case in this one, it seemed like the other team would do something. And in the 33rd minute, LAFC did do that something as Bawanga would score from Ilie to score his 20th goal of the season, and that pretty much just sealed the golden boot race. I mean, he pretty much already won it coming into this game because I think all the players that was chasing him I've already played their game, but he's definitely want to put the cherry on the top of winning a golden boot by, of course, scoring another goal for this LAFC team. Vela then looked to try to add a second, but he missed wide in the 45th minute, and we head to halftime with LAFC leading Vancouver 1-0. In the second half, Oliveira tried to make it 2-0, but he missed wide from close range. I mean, besides that one goal that Oliveira has scored, he's been having a lot of rough luck in terms of finding the ball in the back net and show his clinical finishing because that with his bad finishing there, it come back to haunt LAFC because in the 58th minute, Ali Ahmed would score here from Larea and Vite. I think that's his first goal of the season because I don't think Ali Ahmed had scored for Vancouver this season, but nevertheless, that ties the game up at one apiece. And then it was almost 2-1 if it wasn't for Crepeau. Almost or actually for Ilya's score and own goal here, but that was kind of one of those sequences where the goalkeeper of his own team, and in this case Crepeau, able to prevent the own goal there from Ilya. But then in the 75th minute, penalty once again was given to Vancouver, as this time it's Palacios, the one that fouled Lemaire in the box. They mentioned goal have made every penalty prior to his miss earlier, and yeah, remember how I said that I probably shouldn't have mentioned that he's been perfect, or at least I think maybe the announcer mentioned he was perfect. Yeah, they probably shouldn't have mentioned him being almost perfect besides that penalty that he missed, because in the 75th minute, in that ensuing PK to give the Whitecaps the lead, Gaul missed it again. This time he struck the post from the spot, and I just wonder whether or not if Crepeau has got into to Gaul's head, or Gaul just was snake bin from the spot. I mean, it's very difficult for a guy to step up from the penalty spot twice because first time if you make it or miss it, the second time the goalkeeper can have a sense of where the player is going to go, or the fact that he can maybe trying to put him off a little bit. And Crepeau definitely did it here because yeah, Gaul, I think he was trying to go top left here, which he was trying to make sure that Crepeau had no chance in terms of saving it. But because of the fact that you try when you try to aim for that top left, or even in the top spot from a penalty spot, it's always very difficult to do so, because if you hit it a little bit too high, that's going to hit the post, and it did in that play. So yeah, I mean, the Whitecaps twice in this game would have took the lead from the spot, and twice they failed to do so. The wide did try to make it 2-1, but he heads it wide from the cross before Takoka did deny Gonzalez as he was in on goal. Speaking of a guy that has been a bit of a disappointment for LAFC, Mario Gonzalez has been a big disappointment for this LAFC team, and that that moment kind of just sums up so far his time with LAFC. But yeah, in the end, it ends in a 1-1 draw in this one, and the shots in this one, 10 shots for the 12 that LAFC had, 7 shots on goal for the 2 that Vancouver had, 6 shots off target for the 4 that LAFC had, 1 shot that was blocked for the 2 that Vancouver has, and possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession that LAFC has in this game. And again, we already saw one time both of these teams play each other in a knockout kind of competition in the CONCACAF Champions League. Now we're going to see it once again in the playoffs. And again, I won't be surprised. There could be some feistiness that we could see in this game because when you face against a team so many times, like it is going to be the case where by the time both of these teams face off against each other at BMO Stadium in just a couple of days, it'll be the 5th time that they face off in the regular season this year. And if you face off that many times, you know that there's going to be some agitation between both of these teams and kind of unlikeness that we'll see from both of these teams, and we'll see whether that is going to be the case heading into that 5th matchup of the season in game 1 of the playoffs of that game. There you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of the review for these Western Conference game, and also that's pretty much it for the review for this 2023 MLS regular season. Yes, we made it. We have finally reached to the end of the regular season, but that doesn't mean that things are over because this is where the exciting part has happened. This is where we're starting to get into the great part of the MLS season, which is the playoffs, and in just a month or so, we will be potentially crowning a new champion, unless if LAFC can defend their crown for this upcoming playoffs. But one thing I also want to mention is that for these next couple of days, I'm actually going to be out of state. In fact, tomorrow I'm actually going to be flying to Minnesota, and that for these next couple of days, I won't actually be in town. In fact, for that first 2 playoff game, I'll actually still be out of town, but I'll be back on Thursday. So in these next couple of days, I'm definitely going to. Well, I'm gonna try to make some videos from the hotel room, although that's usually something that I don't like to do because it's kind of low quality and it's kind of almost makeshift kind of way to do video on my travel board. But I'll also definitely be doing some video that is gonna be used as kind of, or some videos I'm gonna do that is gonna be scheduled so that we will fill in some gaps during the time when I'm actually not at home. So those videos that you see while I'm at home, don't pretend I'm actually at home. I'm still just out of town. But those video basically includes my reaction in terms of the prediction that I made in the West and the Eastern Conference. And I did kind of look at it in the beginning, and let's just say it is not very good whatsoever. I think I might have even done worse this season in terms of my prediction than I did last. Because of that, this year I'm actually not going to fill out the bracket like I did in previous season. And I know that sounds ludicrous, but I feel like it's kind of for the best for me to not fill out the bracket, especially of my terrible prediction I made in the beginning of the season. But instead, I'm actually going to replace that with a video that I'll made actually right after when I finished recording this video, and pretty much putting a tier list of where each team is heading into the playoffs. Are they, of course, the favorites of making the playoffs? Are they kind of the dark horse or the teams that could make a deep run? Or they're the team that they need to have an RSL kind of Cinderella story that we saw a couple of seasons ago to maybe make a deep run and maybe even win MLS in general. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of this video. And also, thank you so much for all of you guys that have watched these reviews. I mean, these are always some of my favorite video to make, and it's hard to believe that another season has done and dusted, and now we get to the exciting part where it's time for playoffs, and it's time to find out who is potentially going to be the new champions of MLS this year, unless if LAFC potentially win it for the 2nd year in a row. But yeah, either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.